In today's video, we are going to be taking a look at 10 easy ways to keep your plants cool and healthy during the hot months of summer. And if this is your first time here, my name is Marlene. Welcome to Marlene's How-Tos, my home and garden channel. So first, we're going to take a look at sunlight needs. When you're choosing your area that you're going to plant your flowers, make sure you take a note to see if it's part sun or full sun. Full sun means 6 or more hours, part sun 4 to 6 hours or a little less. And typically your garden center will have them arranged in those, depending on what their needs are. There'll be signs there. And in many cases, the pots themselves will have tags or labels in there that tell you the lighting needs. If you're not sure, always ask for help. And over here, this is my summer porch right here. You can see my caladiums that I planted recently that they've come up. And we're going to take a look at all of these plants further down in the video. So we want to take a look next at containers. And bear in mind that there are, of course, different sizes, colors, shapes of containers. But ceramic containers like these or the plastic ones, those tend to hold moisture a little bit better. Of course, you always want to make sure that they have a drainage hole in the bottom because too much water can also be a problem. Some of them are more suitable for like your porch or protected areas, but you decide. Right here, though, we have some terracotta pots. These are very earthy, give that very organic look. However, they tend to not retain moisture as well. So you'll most likely have to water your plant a little bit more frequently if you're using those. The next thing is the type of soil that you're using. You always want to make sure that you amend the soil, whether it's in a flower bed or in a container. It's not a bad idea to add some compost and manure so that way you have more nutrients to help to support the health of your plant that way. And of course, if you're going to be using containers, you typically want to put in some potting mix, especially if you're using hanging baskets, ones that are made for that, so they'll hold moisture a little bit better. The next thing is mulching. Typically at the time of planting your flowers, as you always see me do in my videos, I try to put the mulch in at that point. But if you didn't get a chance to do it then, you can always add your mulch at any time. Of course, it helps to reduce weeds because it's covering the area, but also it retains moisture. And in the winter time or when in the colder months of the year, it's going to help to keep the plants warm, like a little blanket over them. So it's a win-win whatever season, you choose to put mulch in your plants. Definitely a good idea. And you can use different types of mulch. I did a recent video showing you ferns, how we basically cleared the weeds out and we used some river pebbles in there and it looks so beautiful. We loved how it turned out. We got a lot of compliments on it. People really liked it, so it's definitely, there are many different options that you can use for your mulch. The next thing that we're going to take a look at is watering. Of course, that's essential. Water is life, as they say. And you typically want to water your plants, so whether they're in the flower beds or in containers, either in the morning or in the evening. Because if you do it in the middle of the day, a lot of the water gets lost to evaporation, and it's like you're just throwing your money away and the benefit isn't there. And also it kind of shocks the plants as well too when you water them in the hot sun in the middle of the day. Typically, though, if you're going to wet the leaves, you want to wet the leaves in the morning. You want to refresh them like that so that it will evaporate off, because watering them late in the evening in the hot summer months will sometimes lead to fungal, diseases and things like that. So it's best to do that earlier in the day if you're going to wet the leaves. Now, if your soil is starting to look like this right here, because you do want your soil to dry out a little bit between watering, so you'll touch the top and it should be dry. But if it's as dry as this, like powdery dry like that, then that is definitely too dry. And this plant right now is actually in danger if it doesn't get watered very soon. Hanging baskets, to bear in mind that because of gravity, they tend to dry out a lot more easily. So you may want to water these a lot more often, typically in some cases once per day if you have a lot of flowers in there. And if you're going to be traveling in the hot summer months, you may want to give them a good soak before you leave or put them in a cooler area if it's going to be extended for over a few days. Another thing too for plants like fern that love a lot of moisture is to give them a nice spritz, like in the earlier part of the day. That refreshes them and again it evaporates off. So, by the time nightfall comes, it would have gone and then they would be okay. Also, it's a good idea too to get saucers for your containers that are not self-watering. And in this case, I've packed the stones under. You'd have seen this in the previous fern video that I did. You always want to make sure that you're resting it on top of the stones and not down in the water, because you don't want the water to, soak out your plant and cause root rot and, hurt the plant. And these are self-watering cans right here. If you have these, you don't need a saucer, and also you most likely will need to water your plants less. You'll usually see like a little layer at the bottom. It looks a little different, so you don't need to put any holes in here. It's all set already, so you'll be good to go with those. And just to say, guys, that this video is a part of an open collaboration hosted by my channel. It's called Summer Porch. I'm hosting, and I have co-hosts of Roselin from JMom Creations, Deborah Cabasso Home Living, Andrea's Kidney Transplant Life, and Prameela from Cuddy Succulents, as well as Penny from Penny's Lifestyle Living. And I'll be linking their channels in the description box below. So since we are talking about Summer Porch, let's take a look at mine right now. You can see the caladiums that I planted some weeks ago, that they're looking absolutely fabulous. I just love how they turned out. And of course, that would be the Thriller in this case. And we have our begonias in the middle, and we have our creeping Jenny at the bottom. Of course, those would be the spillers on there. So check that video out if you haven't seen it as yet to know exactly what those terms mean. And of course, over here we have a nice pitcher of lemonade and 2 glasses, to help to cool us down in the hot summer months. And right here we have this beautiful home stand that I got on my trip, or our family trip, to Pigeon Forge earlier this year. And I just love it. And I think it's perfect for any season of the year. Perhaps for Christmas, I'll maybe put a bow on it or something like that. So that's going to be fabulous. And that table I got at the dollar store for $5 some months ago. And I did freshen up my door wreath. I did put some, more eerie, lighter colors on there to give it that more, summertime feel. So you can leave me a note in the comments what you think about that one. And this mat that we've had for a few months now, it's very versatile and I think great for all seasons. Over here we have our croton. And you remember how small this was when I started out with it, and it's maybe like 4 times the size. I repotted it once. We have some impatiens down here, which I'm going to be planting in a future video. And all of these plants, guys, they are part shade lovers, just like the fern right here as well too. So you always want to group your plants, the similar needs together, just to make sure that you don't have one that wants one thing while the other wants the other one, especially if they're in the same container. These are the begonias that I planted earlier as well too. You can see that they're coming up really nicely there. And over here I have more caladiums in a pot by themselves. It's also called Heart of Jesus. I'm sure you can see why, based on how it looks right there. And then over to the left are my chrysanthemums. They bloom every summer, surprisingly, but they do. And I just pinch them off, once they've bloomed, so that way they'll, spread out and, be a little bit fuller at the top. Sometimes I'll just like this, take them off and leave as is. So that's the summer porch right there, guys. I hope you like it. And we're going to move on to the next thing that we need to bear in mind now, and that is when we are feeding them. We always want to feed our plants because just like any other living thing, when you get food, you have a better chance of survival, right? So typically for plant food, you want to follow the instructions on the type that you're buying. You have many different types out there. Feed them typically, I'd say once every 10 days. In the weeks that are not too warm. If it's like in the 90s, you may want to scale back a little bit to every 2.5 to 3 weeks. And make sure the soil is watered the day before, so you're not putting the food, the food mixture on dry soil, because that will shock your plants. So if you like gardening and you love flowers, even half as much as I do, be sure to hit the subscribe button and tap on the notification bell, so that way you never miss an upload. You can also go and see some of the past videos that I did, because many of them are linked to what you're seeing on this video today. So they get recommended to you that way. The next thing is companion flowers or companion plants. Of course, you always want to choose plants that are, sun-loving, like these right here for the sunnier areas, like these petunias and marigolds that I planted previously in another video as well. But like this coneflower to the left right here, it's not blooming just yet in this video, but they offer shade. They're very drought resistant to plants like these. Even though they are sun-loving, it helps when they have something that's a little taller that's going to, shield them a little bit. So these coneflowers, they're so resilient and they hold up very well. So they're a very good idea, to help out some of those other plants, especially the ones that are shorter, like these lilies right here and so on. And those have faded out. By the time you've seen this, they would have faded. Small trees too, like myrtle right here, like crepe myrtle, are another good idea as well too. They do offer some shade, but not too much. And so, it's definitely a good idea for little trees like these to put in your yard. Now let's talk about sunburn. If you take a closer look, you'll see that this orchid has a lot of little blotches on there, and those are actually sunburn. Earlier in the spring, I had put it out here on my spring porch video. Right to the corner there, you'll see it, and it was doing perfectly fine. But once it got too warm for them, then the spot started to come out. So I moved it inside by my kitchen window, and you can take a look and see how it is there, guys. So bear in mind that, if a plant can come inside, because of its size, and if it makes sense and it's, having a tough time outside, you can always bring it in, and see what happens. You can see that it's still there, it's still healthy. It's just in a little bit of shock right there. So what I did was I cleaned it off with some mayonnaise, like I've showed you how to do in a previous video as well. And in the space of 2.5 weeks, guys, look at that. Look how far the root got from where it was before. And I've got a new leaf on there as well. And this is just 2.5 weeks, guys. So your plants really will tell you exactly how they're feeling. You just take a look and you will see. It even gave me 2 new roots right here. And this is just in 2.5 weeks. So just observe them, see how they look, and you'll know that, something needs to be done, and you can address the issue before it gets too far along. And speaking of sunburn, did you know that your lawn can also get sunburned if it's cut too low? This is our dog. You'll remember him from a previous video. If your grass is too high, or if your grass is high enough, then it's kind of like an insulation. But if it's too low, then the roots can get burned, and that's not good for them. So typically at this time of the year, what you want to do is to raise your lawnmower higher. And my son is showing you how to do it right here. You do the front as well as the back. Typically about 3 to 3.5 inches would be the height at that time of the year. So definitely something to bear in mind. It's not a bad idea too to have like a cooling off area for your plant, like if they're they're a little sick, diseased or whatever, because typically on my back porch is where I plant my flowers, and some of them that are in a little bit of distress, I'll put them here for a while so they can just cool off and recover. And I do want to take a moment to say thank you for those who gave me super thanks recently. I appreciate you. Sharon J, Neil C, Bruce L, and Andrea. Appreciate you all so much. These funds go towards getting more flowers and equipment so I can give you the full experience, because you know that I don't use stock photos. I give you the real deal. The next thing now is deadheading your plants. You'll want to, cut off the spent flowers, once they've bloomed, unless you're wanting to get seeds from them, because the energy that they use to produce seeds, it could be used to give you more flowers and to keep them healthier, so they're more resilient. So it's really not a bad idea to go in and take those off. These are already dried, so I'm just pulling them off, but you can just cut them off once they fade. The going is not necessarily has to be done, but you can. The next thing is pests and diseases right here. These are being caused by whiteflies on these coneflowers right here. You can see it doesn't really damage the plant. They're kind of okay, but it's kind of unsightly. These, on the other hand, right here, we're really messing with these petunias right here. These aren't mine, but I, decided to help out this person that was having this issue. And what you do is you use insecticidal soap. And there are many different types that you can use. And I like using the organic one. This is one such one right here. So even though it's organic and it's clean, I always wear my gloves with them and just, turn the streamer on and just go ahead and get them sprayed to get rid of all of these insects. And it's even good for things like powdery mildew, some of these sometimes. They're good for those things too. So you want to make sure that you're spraying them at a time of day when it's cool. You don't want to spray them when it's too hot out there. And typically you start on a smaller area, maybe a few leaves, just to make sure it doesn't affect your plant, because on occasion it can, or even the petals. So you check a small amount first, and see the following day. If it's fine, you can go ahead and just do it to the entire plant. And you just cover it over. There's a lot of infestation. You may want to make sure it covers the top of the leaves and the bottom as well. And then I try to do mine before it rains, so that when the rain falls, it just washes them off. But you can use your hose to wash them off the next day, and then you'll be fine. These are my beans right here, my green beans that we planted in our raised bed, and you can see they're having a little bit of trouble there. So I'm just going in and spraying them. And typically you'll find too that a lot of times when they get attacked is when they're in a younger, more tender state. So you always want to keep an eye out for those. So these ones are a little bit more mature here. You can see that they're already they're blossoming there. So once they get pollinated, then we're gonna start having some beans to reap. And there are different types. I'll link some of these below for you. You can get these on Amazon, to treat your plants, for any kind of pest that may be coming on there. So just to summarize now, there the different things to bear in mind. You'll want to make sure that you give them the proper lighting needs. You want to make sure that you are choosing the correct containers, companion flowers. You want to make sure that you're putting mulch in, watering them the right way. You also want to check for pests and diseases, deadhead them when you can. Make sure that you hydrate them a little bit. You can spritz them if they are able to take it, but do it earlier in the day so that way, you don't have any issues with any kind of, fungal diseases and things like that. So there are so many things to consider, in taking care of your plants, but they're very easy steps. It doesn't take a lot, and it's not something you have to do all the time. But always, checking on your plants to make sure they're okay. These are some sun-loving begonias that I put right next to the coneflowers so they are protected. So you could leave me your comments on what you thought about this. And I certainly thank you so much for watching. And I do hope to see you in the next video. Take care.